2 minutes late.
Whoa!
Look at this guy.
Well, pink headphones,
Yeah, it's all good. I love the pink headphones. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Talent Grind Live. We're going to make this a 30-minute episode today. I am Michael Dorn from Team Source, joined as always by my good friend, Mr. Alex Mann.
How are we
you
doing?
today, Alex?
I am doing great. I'm in Florida today, and it's 83 degrees outside, and just got myself settled. It's great.
I'm in California, and it's 76 degrees out now, so it's starting to get warm again. Have to start transitioning, get those cool days or warm days, cool nights type of thing.
Yeah, no, I'm jealous of that. Well, I had to get out of New York. Finally got hot, and then I was like, you know what? I want to go to Florida. I want to go to the beach.
Where it's hotter.
Where it's hotter, but at least there's bodies of water that are safe to swim in, which is key. Can't say the same about HR and talent tech. What the safe waters are in that space today? Nobody knows. But that's what we're going to chat about.
I was just informed about a new startup that's in the personal data mobility space. That's essentially the integration tab on my platform, thus confirming the category that I am trying to create.
Say more to that.
Well, that's the deal, right? Like, people are not looking at the big picture, and so many people who are creating products that are raising money from are really just creating elaborate features on more broader systems that need to be built that aren't built yet. It's the whole theory behind Bolt, and why I'm so happy that Bolt's going back to their original vision, because e-commerce was essentially an ecosystem of fractured different tools that were all interacting via APIs and were horribly inefficient. And so you need to kind of integrate the core components of what's really needed for a business function into one platform, right?
Yep.
And so, there's two different viewpoints in SaaS. There's the people who are creating the Swiss Army knives, and then there's the people who are creating the, Swiss-made stainless steel surgical scalpels.
But you know what I think about that, and we've mentioned the word, like, that is the agentic AI side of things that I think people are kind of like not wrapping their heads around. I think people are thinking about it from a ChatGPT generative AI sort of perspective, but not necessarily like, no, on the agentic side of things, autonomously executing tasks, being able to like actually improve the workflows, like creating that sort of Swiss Army knife of the entire process. Like, that makes me excited about the process that you're building, frankly, actually, as complimentary as I can be to you.
Yeah, I was just talking to a friend right before this meeting, and he's like, essentially is thinking about how the future of business communication, what it's going to evolve into, right?
Or devolve into.
And it's going to be simplified down, where you have different systems. You have a system for home, you'll have a system for work, you have a system for pastimes, maybe social, and then you will live in those spaces. And so that means there's going to be a lot of destruction in SaaS. And it'll probably, it's like anything else. Some SaaSes will rise to be giant, the next generation of Facebooks and Googles, right? And Stripes.
Did you see
things like that?
Did you see yesterday that Mark Andreessen said on some Talking to Women Viral on Twitter yesterday that the only jobs that'll be left after AI will be venture capital?
Yeah, he used to be my hero. I used to love that guy. He's from a small town in Illinois or in Wisconsin. I'm from a small town in Illinois. He went to U of I. He was at that lab. He invented the browser. But he's been rich for a really, really long time. And the thing is, the hardcore engineers often they're not the best with human beings. Like Elon saying that empathy is a weakness,
I hate that.
Is the core antithesis of everything that I stand for.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, it's just
it just
weird
shows
thing to say.
Yeah, it shows that he's on the spectrum. I've got ADHD, so technically I'm somewhere on the spectrum as well, but EQ, he's got like a higher math and science IQ. feel like I've
Yeah.
almost got a higher EQ, and that's in if you're coming into a world of AI, that's what's going to be more valuable. That and storytelling, and I think in personal branding. Unfortunately, if there's any hell we're moving into, it's where everybody who gets above 5 years of work experience has to start building their personal brand. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't become just like this is where marketing agencies go, just building people's personal brands for them and charging them a service fee.
Well, I think it's more the evolution of the resume. Like your
Yeah,
personal brand used to be distilled into one page,
sure.
like what are the core things? And now we're at the point where people don't really care or give a shit about your resume. It's like, what does your LinkedIn look like? What is your like sort of social presence? And how does that add value to the business that's hiring you? And I think that's a kind of interesting sort of evolution because to your point, I think you're dead right. I think like I see it all the time. I get DMs from people. Oh, you laugh. I get DMs from people on LinkedIn all the time asking to like improve my LinkedIn, improve my presence. I can help you get number of impressions on posts, as in personal branding. And it's interesting having been in this space for a while as well. A number of years, and obviously I see it on both sides from like the job seeker perspective and the SaaS provider perspective, like the two sides of the coin. And one of the things I find fascinating is on the job seeker side of things, it is all about build your personal brand. Like if you were to read all the sort of advice that it's like, get your LinkedIn profile headline, get your LinkedIn about summary. What did you actually do in your actual job in the job sections on LinkedIn? And then it's like, and start to increase your reach. Like start posting 4x times a week so that people in the space see that you're knowledgeable about what you want to get hired for, which I think is kind of interesting because like I guess, that makes sense because, in a severancy kind of way, you have your personal life and you have your professional life. And on your personal life, I would say 90% of people have no qualms posting an Instagram story about like their vacation or like what they're doing for the day, get ready with me, all that kind of stuff. But like that obviously is now applying into like your professional life as well. It's like, show me about your professional ability. And I think those that can kind of get over that sort of hump and start building their brand, like that's where the value is going to be for people in jobs today and those looking for jobs tomorrow.
Yeah, which is a reoccurring
It's
theme,
so
I think,
reoccurring.
to our, our
We talk about this a
conversations.
lot.
Yeah, yeah, but if you think about it, like that's just kind of how media and the news works. They keep repeating important things over and over and over, and then hoping that it can ultimately sink through and make a difference. Not that it matters because restream, sorry, now has in the upper left corner an eyeball letting you know how many people are watching you, and there's actually nobody watching us, so
Is there
it
not? I
doesn't
didn't
even
invite
matter
anybody
what we
today.
say
I
right
didn't
now.
invite anyone.
Yes, no, nobody's watching us, but I think that's okay. It does seem like there's more activity around the recruiting space. I'm starting to see a lot more people getting jobs um, on my LinkedIn feed. And funnily enough, there's a dude who is like a big TA person when I first moved out here and then started his own business. And I've tried to get on his radar for years, and he's never really paid any attention to me, just pinged me out of the blue with a link like we should catch up yesterday. So that was kind of interesting. Like, huh, maybe doing this thing that Alex told me to do actually will work.
It,
Start to see, you got to look for tiny little data points,
it's
right? Like,
infuriating though because you're like, I know it's providing value. I just don't know what value it's providing until the day something of value happens, and that's the kind of thing. It's like, it like what like if I was telling somebody now, like if some founder or whatever asked me for like advice of like how do I grow my business as fast as possible, I'd be like, eschew ads and just take that 5 grand a month that you want to spend on ads and invest that into content on LinkedIn and
hmm,
invest that into like creating this kind of content, like video content, getting the shorts, the reels, the TikToks, the LinkedIn videos, getting the Substack newsletter stood up. Honestly, I think that's where like houses are not built on sand. I think when there's like such a push for people just to get straight into like ads, I think we kind of get lost. and I think it creates this sort of artificial pressure that kind of doesn't need to exist, because ultimately a person needs to build a brand and a company needs to build a brand. You know what I mean? And building a brand doesn't start with ads. It starts with like getting out there and just like being wrong 80% of the time, and then hopefully you're right 20% of the time, and then that 20% just starts compounding with people going, that guy knows what the hell he's talking about, you know?
It's funny. I'm so judgy. I see people's brands all the time, and I am judging them. I put an enormous amount of time, and mine aren't even perfect, but I'm relatively happy with them. Like I think that they have potential, but I put a lot of iteration into so many aspects of my business. From the branding to the pricing. I can show you a pricing document that goes back 4 years ultimately to what we've up to and iterated now, also bringing in new information about what competitive companies in the space are doing. You know what I mean? So and then having that branding and marketing aspect is just vitally important, because if you're the best at something but nobody knows about it, what good is it?
I mean, I would say that, like, I mean, like if you've got the ability, but there's nobody knows how to find you to like source it, like you want it
Yeah.
to be passive. Like LinkedIn is like like building your brand on LinkedIn on social. It's like any sort of consulting business. It's like you want it to be passive. Like you don't want to go out there looking for work. You want it to be coming. You want referrals. You want people finding you on LinkedIn. You want them like kind of going, that guy knows what he's talking about. And there are some great people out there doing great content like that. I do think in the talent acquisition space, it's interesting because a lot of the content I see in terms of being created by talent acquisition people is very much towards the job seeker. You know,
Yeah.
it's very much
Yeah.
that, which I think is interesting. You know what I mean? Because of,
Well, because it's confusing. It's so hard to differentiate. So that's really why the world class people are able to do it really well. Like I've built two businesses at once, and they both complement each other. And then it's just like, well, it's so easy to get confused. Like, should I be pitching the services? Should I be pitching the software? The software's not ready for the user. Should I be pitching the services? But all I want to talk about is the software. And so then that's what ends up coming out. It's like, no wonder people get confused about what I'm doing. It's like my ADHD brain is going crazy in the marketing machine, and it's binging all over the resources. It's not. And even though I know about a unified brand presence and content pillars and all of that, that's why I'm saying, like, I think that more and more it's not going to be PR firms as much as it's going to be like personal branding firms. I
that
think if you're in
is,
PR,
you've definitely hit the nail on the head. I think
yeah, like if you're in PR, you should just be turning into PBR.
that's clever.
Right, because if some PBR firm came and was like, "Hey, listen, I see what you're doing. I'll do all of that for you for like 800 to 1,000 a month," I would probably would be like sold.
Yeah,
If I because the people just like creating the content is fun. This production and distribution, not
not fun.
fun.
Not like there are some people that love it. That's not us.
No, I'm not one of them.
Oh, yeah, no, it's interesting, and I think you're dead right. I think like the big thing is like figuring out, like, no, like I'll give you an example of PR. Like as somebody who buys those kinds of services sometimes, like I think for startups, okay, for example, for like SaaS companies, the way they look at PR is like we need to get it on PR Newswire, so we go on the wire. Like you're never getting picked up by anything. That costs a couple grand. When you see like
Really?
Alex Mann has been hired at XYZ company. And it's like he comes from here and here and here. He's great. Here's a quote from our advisor. Here's a quote from our CEO. Here's a quote from Alex. That costs a couple grand.
Jeez.
You couldn't persuade me. You couldn't put a gun to my head and make me, under extreme duress, admit that that actually has any value whatsoever. It is none. But like,
You know
would
what the
I love an
equivalent of that is for
influencer?
recruiting? It
I
doesn't
know.
cost you any money, but the recruiters who are like, "I have this job open."
What they
Never
put in
any
the,
engagement.
yeah, which is wild because I'm
Rarely do
like,
they even go into the comments and put a link to the job. I mean, sometimes they do, but like you just there's no likes, there's no reposts, there's no engagement.
yeah, but I mean that's not the kind of content, and that's not what LinkedIn are driving. Like, sure, we were saying this, but we didn't say it on our official call, on our official stream. that like if you were to look at LinkedIn or Microsoft's like report, like its quarterly report, you'll see that LinkedIn and Talent Solutions barely gets a mention. But what gets a ton of mentions is LinkedIn as a social network and LinkedIn as social media. And we can absolutely
Yeah.
see that they're completely doubling down on workplace content on the platform. And that is to the detriment of the whole point of LinkedIn, which is like looking for jobs. Like I would actually put this question out there about LinkedIn and go, what is the point of LinkedIn and who's it really for now? You know what I mean? Like
I think that LinkedIn wants to be lynda.com.
like an LLD product,
Yeah.
but of homemade content, like YouTube basically.
Yeah, like imagine if you could take all the YouTube, filter out what is the high value and low value content, aggregate it, and then sell it. That's what
Oh,
LinkedIn's
totally,
doing.
because it's cheaper. Like if they have to create profession.
That's what they're giving people shiny badges for their contributions. Don't ever do the contributions. Ever. Comments, posts.
But I
That's it.
thought the contributions, I thought they get a lot of engagement, no? Like if you go on LinkedIn and you look at
You're giving them your knowledge and they're selling it as an AI coach.
I thought we were pro AI on this podcast though.
I am pro AI. I'm pro AI using my data and me benefiting from that somehow.
You know what's interesting about that comment
Well, like
is
LinkedIn is making money off my data. I should be compensated for my data.
there you go. Okay, so this was the argument made years ago about Facebook and Google, which was like, I am the product. Like the data of
Mhm.
me is what they sell. And
If the
you
product
can't
is
opt
free, you
out
are
of
the
that.
product.
Like to get access to these services, that's what you're kind of giving up, you know? And I think it's LinkedIn
Hey,
kind of, yeah.
Alex, can you name a single monetization channel or tool that LinkedIn provides its users?
You mean like creators?
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, there's no like I would not be surprised if they got to that point. I think like in a way that like what do they call it, creator hub on TikTok and a bunch of other like obviously Instagram has theirs, YouTube has theirs, you know, where you can get compensated. Yeah,
Spotify
for like
has
what,
it.
like if you have like
Yep.
100,000 views on a video on YouTube, you
Yep.
can start like monetizing them. Like I don't doubt because you know, having spoken to a lot of influencers on, and when I say influencers on LinkedIn, I mean like in the HR space recently, like reaching out to them and talking to them about how they are, what their process is, and they were telling me, you know, in some, I would say, in the aggregate of the conversations I had, that a lot of them would say that they're in private LinkedIn approved kind of programs that are not necessarily there to give them capital but to get them to like be better at posting on the LinkedIn platform. So I would say it's probably only a matter of time before LinkedIn starts compensating. I will say this, actually, it's funny, now you've triggered something else. I was building a list of ambassadors and I was looking at people who had like in the HR tech, in the talent acquisition space, so like recruiters. And I was trying to filter out, I had to go through this manually because like we were saying earlier, a lot of the recruiters were like job seeker focused content, and I was like, I don't want to like work with those kinds of people. No offense to them, but it was just like I want to talk recruiter on recruiter. And of the top 30 that I found on LinkedIn in that list, now this is just like an unscientific kind of list. I was like, who else looks like this person? And then it's like, oh, they've got 50,000 followers. Only one of them had a Ray card. Only one in this huge
Really?
list. Like as in they had a link tree link, and you could
Wow.
see like how much it cost to collab on a post, how much it cost. And I was like, good for you,
Oh.
miss. That you just have this point blank, because it probably cuts out so much of the BS. But like everybody
Mm.
else doesn't have a clue how to price what the hell they're selling, inverted commas. It's the same with podcasters. You know, I went to a podcasting convention in September in DC, and they all kept talking about Cash App, and I was like, do you have any idea how much it costs Square to get somebody to deposit $20? And yet they're paying you like $5 a download or whatever the hell the price is. It probably costs them $3,000 to get
A
somebody to
tax?
deposit
Their tax?
20. Yeah, that would probably be the figure. You know what I
You think
mean?
it's 3,000 CAC for something like that?
To get a
Really?
deposited account,
Oh, wow.
where they actually get value.
You
But
get
the
the money.
podcasts are driving the value. Do you know what I mean? More than say like ads on Meta or ads on YouTube or Google search. They're very expensive places to advertise. They drive results. You can see the clicks. But when people go, put in my code, I'm Mark Maron or whatever, they don't realize how underpriced they are. And
Mm.
it's the same with influencers on LinkedIn. Like I see thought leader ads sponsored on LinkedIn for like Deal or Rippling. Okay. And they'll be running an ad for like with some like HRIS sort of person, a HR business partner. That HR business partner is happy to be there. But the value of that ad, let's just say the cost of a demo for Rippling is a cost of an attended demo for Rippling. I don't know this, but I would hazard a guess from my own expertise that it probably cost them about $1,000 to have an attended demo. They run that ad and they get 30 demos. Okay. Is that person getting 30 grand?
Oh.
No, they're not even getting close to it. They're probably not even getting $500 for that post. So people are like criminally underpricing the networks as well on LinkedIn, which is why like when you talk recently about you're culling all the people out of your network so you can make those 30,000 people that are your connections on LinkedIn the most prime. That for you is a monetization strategy in the medium to long term
For
is
sure.
very
Yeah.
clever because as an advertiser, I want to buy not just you, but access to your network. If you were full of candidates, Michael, I'd be like, yeah, whatever. I'm not really going to price that. You know what I mean? But if they're all other recruiters and they're all other people in the talent acquisition space, they're all SaaS people, I'm like, fuck yeah, I'll pay for that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can't wait to see
Welcome
the
to my
evolution of
sermon.
software and more. I can't wait to see wait for more people to ultimately realize the opportunities that are out there. That if you're in a world of AI, you need to be user centric. The race now is to the individual lifelong companion.
What does that even mean?
The AI that's with you as you
Oh,
grow,
is
as
that
you
is that
learn.
related to what Zuckerberg was talking about this week on Theo Von? I'm not sure you saw that.
No, I didn't. Tell me about it.
Where he was on, they were talking about like the average number of friends an American has now. I'm going to say this generally,
Oh
but it's
yeah.
also kind of pathetic. The average number of friends an American has is 3 people, and obviously for Facebook,
Three.
yeah, for Facebook or Instagram, that's like not enough.
There's
So
there's a real problem with
So
that.
they
Yeah.
reckon that I'm not sure. I can't remember at the top of my head what the number was, but I think it was like 11. I'm in my head. I'm like it's either 11 or 17, and anybody can like go look this up. This conversation because it only came out like yesterday. But they're going to create AI companion friends for you that will supplement the
Yeah,
three.
that's not the answer. I think the answer is we need to legalize weed nationwide, and they need to have weed lounges. Like if people like don't do your edible at home, come hang out in this super chill hippie space with other people and talk about random
Oh
crap.
God, that
Like that's what America
America
needs
needs to chill out. That
ultimately.
is for sure.
To chill out.
Like everyone's
Like 70s style chill out. Macrame plant holders on the wall.
like
Everything's
you're
kind of like
so
brown
Gen
and like
X.
mustard yellow.
Wicker basket seats. That
Wicker baskets, patchouli, incense burning.
what
There's like a big tank of fish on the wall, you know? You're just kind of chilling in a super comfy couch. Yeah.
Do you think, when it comes to AI where we are today, that it's overhyped today in, say, the HR
Yeah.
talent space?
I mean,
Are we
that's what
overhyping
Jan.
it? Because we talk about it every episode.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know, dude, because that's what Jan LeCun is saying, right, from Facebook. He's saying that LLMs have reached their limit; they're not AGI. And then at the same time, you've got Jeff Hinton, who's like, people don't realize how fast this is going, and we're going to be past the tipping point, and nobody's going to realize it. And it's like, okay, thanks, father of AI. Like,
Because we are what, two, it was end of 2022, ChatGPT came to market. So we're 2.5 years in now. And I would say for 99% of the population, it's the exact same product as what it started with. Everyone, there's that.
I would say it's like anything else. They're probably using 5% of its
Oh, but
capabilities,
that's
and
the point.
hackers are
That's the point
probably
I made.
using 30% of its
Well, that's what I
capabilities,
mean
you
by
know?
like from a mainstream perspective. Most people who would have touched ChatGPT when the hype cycled in November 2022, and here we are now in May 1st, 2025, and it's like for 99% of people, they've just used that product, and they don't know the kind of under the hood changes that have been made to it. Whereas there's that other 1% of people that are out there, and maybe 99%, but maybe it's 10% of people that are like building workflows, using the agentic powers of AI, kind of getting into like, Cursor and all the other kind of tools that exist out there that have different specialties of what they're doing, and I wonder, are we like, how long will it take? Like I'll give you an example. And this is, I was chatting with a friend of mine and he works in EY and he is on their HR implementation. And they're still doing like success factor implementations or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not going to bring AI to T-Mobile anytime soon in their HR department. Do you know what I mean? Like, as in, it's not really. You know what I mean? And I guess the question is large enterprise kind of fucked by this in the sense that, like, if you're a smaller company and you build from the ground up your AI strategy, that you would be years ahead of these more larger enterprises, in particular in HR and
I mean,
talent.
this is the continual business model battle between first mover advantage and second mover
Yeah.
advantage. It ultimately always comes down to who executes the best.
Yeah, well, I think in large enterprises, it's probably infinitely harder.
There's so many ways. I know we need to finish up here in a minute. I'm just going to say this is the last few point. I don't worry about competitors anymore because most people have egos, and I've been inside so many startups with people with limited experience with huge egos making bad decisions that like there's something I always remember. Like there's an old comedian named Joan Rivers, and her daughter was famous, Melissa Rivers. And Melissa Rivers once said the best piece of advice her mom ever gave her when it came to her career was to put blinders on and stay in your lane. Don't look at what other people are doing. You don't know what's happening in other people's lives and their businesses, anything. You just need to stay focused on what you're doing and do it to the best of your ability. And I think that's generally good advice for anybody in this new age of AI when it comes to personal branding and how you reinvent yourself as a professional in the 21st century. So, Alex, I'm going to let you go. You've got a hard stop at 12:30. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you for nobody for joining us in the live stream, but hopefully people watch this in the future.
There's good
And
content in this
have
episode.
a great.
I think we had a good. This is actually
I think
it
so.
was tight.
Yeah, if I can ever edit them,